Hello and welcome to Education Staff. I'm your instructor, Sean McKay. So, when it comes to emergency management in healthcare, we got to make sure that one of the overwhelming requirements that is done is education and training of our staff. Uh, this is a very important part of emergency management, a very important part of making sure the emergency management plan works and the operations work inside a facility and making sure that everybody knows what their job is. It's a process of imparting information, and to a person through lecture or process, and so they can learn skills and other information that they need. And depending on the message, it may be taught in different ways. Maybe taught through lecture, maybe through just reading processes, maybe through online processes. It all depends on what your message is and how you want to do it, how cost effective you want to do it, and what your audience is. So some of the techniques that include in education are lecture, skills demonstration, skills testing, computer generated lessons. So it's important to understand who our audience is. We want to make sure we know who we're talking to, what our message is, and what we're intending to get done. Not all educational processes work for everyone. Everyone has a different learning process. Sometimes you have to blend processes together to work and get your message across. You can't have just one thing done. Um, some things that they call death by PowerPoint. You can't just have PowerPoint programs. You got to be having a lecture. You got to have talking outside the PowerPoint. You've got to just not read the PowerPoint. You've got to have a message. You got to have demonstration of skills. You've got to have talking between students so that you get your message through and that you can really understand what these people know and how they've learned and then to test their skills. Got to know your audience. Again, very important. Am I talking to doctors? Am I talking to cleaning staff? Am I talking to nurses? Am I talking to, outside people? We got to know who our audience is. And then we got to adjust our message throughout the time. You know, you got to realize as you're walking through a class who you're talking to and adjust that message according to who you're talking to. And maybe you're lighthearted, maybe you're stern, maybe you're giving more examples depending on what's going on. So you really have to know your audience. Again, we have to take several factors into it, you know especially a diverse uh, people that we're looking at. Do we have people that are, from different countries? Do we have people that don't have um, English as their first language? Do we have people from different parts of the country? Because things are done differently throughout the country. So we got to take that into you know our account. Again, educational level, age, familiarity, ease with English. Um, you know, Especially nowadays with the diverse age group that we have. You know, the more time you have in a job, the more you know about the job, the more intimate you are with the job and the intricacies of the job. Uh, Older people do differently than younger people. They have learning processes that are different. So we've got to take that all into account also. Again, if we don't have English as a primary part of our staff, then we have to make arrangements. We have to have things done in their particular language. We have to have interpreters. We have to make sure what we create is accurate. There's nothing like creating something and you thinking you're creating something in their language and then realizing that it's not the message that you're looking for. So you got to have somebody that is, well staffed in that language to proofread what you're doing, to assist you, and maybe even, educate them in your place. So you got to have, you know, people that are on your staff, or at least access to people that are going to give you assistance in those languages that you're speaking of. Again, we have hard of hearing, we have deaf people, we have visually impaired or blind people. These are all things that we have to think about, when we're um, educating people. Again, we're filled with a variety of people, physical makeups, impairments, language abilities. We have a diverse staff in our facilities. So we have to take that into account when we're educating people. Again, we got to tailor our stuff to our audience and who we're teaching. Again, are we teaching to doctors? Can we use higher language versus somebody that maybe not be as well educated? So we got to take that into account. And then everybody has a role within emergency management and an emergency. So we want to make sure that they understand what their role is, what their job is, and we got to educate them in that manner, and that particular job and jobs that they may be doing for that particular emergency or emergencies that they're set to plan for. Again, certain requirements for certain jobs and certain emergencies may take more complex education classes, such as hazardous materials and decon. Um, there are the classes that are required by the National Fire Protection Agency, or competencies such as hazmat operations. And then you may require expertise or assistance outside your own staff to educate these people, especially when it comes to hazardous materials and things. You may be want to looking at the fire department or people that are based in education of staff for decon and things like that to come in to assist you, or even run the classes for you. Again, we have laws and requirements and whatnot that we need to meet for educational requirements, especially for emergency preparedness, whether that's annually or biannually. Uh, and then, of course, we must have drills. There's no sense in training somebody and doing all this education if you're not going to drill and test the uh, stuff that you're learning on, and your emergency operations plan, because then it's useless. You don't know if it's actually worked. You don't know if the people are educated enough. You don't know if what they've learned is stayed with them. So you have to test it at least biannually or annually, to ensure that people know what they're doing. Again, new skills can take effort to pass along. They may not be easy. Skills are perishable depending on what's going on, especially with hazardous materials and decon. Um, you may require re-education periodically, and it's not an overnight process. You're not going to just get up and running instantaneously with this. You have to plan for it. You have to, budget for it, and then you have to educate everybody, and you have to educate the entire staff of the facility in what their jobs are in these things. So that's not something that happens like instantaneously. So you have to plan how you're going to do that and figure out, over about a time, what you're going to do and how long it's going to take. Again, there's leaders and administrators. We can't forget about those. They have their roles to do, whether it's incident command system or whatnot. They need to be educated also. We can't leave them out. Um, there's no sense having a captain of a ship that doesn't know what they're doing, you know. So we got to make sure that we educate our leaders and administrators in specific roles and jobs that they're going to be doing also. Again, everybody has their role: the CEO, the doctors, the nurse, the techs, janitorial staff, in an emergency operations plan. Um, each fulfills their particular roles and their their responsibilities in the emergency operations plan, and they have to be educated in those things. Again, we have to have some way of testing them, whether it's written, formal quizzes, informal polling of students in a class, or skills testing. Uh, Again, we have to document that and keep that for our records. And anyone who is found to have diminished skills during these testings then can um, be re-educated or have to take the class again, depending on how bad that you know they perform in those skills or exercises. Again, it can be a difficult process. You got to have skilled instructors from facility uh, personnel to do this. Not everybody can be an educator. Not everybody can teach people. Just because you have a degree doesn't mean that you can teach. So you got to make sure that you have people that are well skilled and can perform very well when it comes to educating staff. Again, when it comes down to it, you got to look for help as you need it. Seek experts in your field or the field that you're talking about. Build liaisons with other facilities, maybe that you can send personnel to them, or they can send personnel to you, depending on what you're teaching or talking about. And then, of course, build liaisons with the federal, state, and local and private agencies. Many times they're the experts in it, and you can talk to them, and maybe get formal classes and send personnel to those formal classes and whatnot. There's many times that there are online classes that are given nowadays, and there are hybrid classes and classes that people can actually go to. Again, education never stops. Uh, Learning never stops. It's a process that's ongoing, and we have to make sure that we're on top of it. And lastly, let no man's ghost return to say his training let him down.